people. Today is December 3rd, 2021, and my neighbors are being very loud right now. But today is Friday, December 3rd, 2021, and it is episode 9 of Talks with Tay, and I have a very special guest on our show today who is my dear friend from graduate school, and she's just in the comments. Okay, let me see if I can let her in because we were having some trouble earlier.
Hey!
Yay!
Yay!
We did it! Okay.
I'm so happy. I don't know what happened back there.
I know. I honestly, technology is kind of confusing. Yeah, it was so weird because it let us message in the, or like, video
the video chat. Yeah.
In the, okay.
Yeah, and I wonder, I was using my earphones earlier and yeah, I couldn't. But hi, everyone.
My friend is here, guys. My good friend. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So let me go ahead and introduce you. So, internet people, this is Alecxia. And Alecxia is a LPC associate. She has a Master's of Arts degree, and she's also a National Certified Counselor. It's being supervised by our old professor, Dr. Wooten. And Alecxia graduated from the University of Incarnate Word in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in psychology. To further her education, Alecxia attended St. Mary's University and graduated with her master's in clinical mental health counseling in 2018. So Alecxia enjoys working with Latino immigrants, providing trauma-informed services to help promote biculturalism and deconstruct the ideology of assimilation. Alexia's work consists of helping manage stress and immigration, transition, and contain symptoms of trauma. And a fun fact about Alecxia is she has a lovely little fur baby named Beans, or as I call him, Mr. Beans. Did we drop the Mr. part of his name?
No, I think originally he was named, or he is named Mr. Beans. So like I'm okay with Beans or Mr. Beans. I stick with Beans. Like I think I use Mr. Beans when I'm like upset at him. I'm like, Mr. Beans, come over here.
Like Mr. Beans.
Yeah.
Like, you're in trouble now.
Yeah.
Well, he's just the most adorable little puppy dog.
He's the best.
He's so wonderful. I love him to pieces. And then, okay, so I haven't seen you in a minute. So
And forever.
yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
You doing
Yeah.
good?
Overall. Tired,
Yeah.
working long
Working
shifts.
long days, dude.
Yeah. But I love it. I feel at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And is this week 1 or week 2?
It's week 3.
3. Okay, okay. So you're working from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Are you still an LPC associate?
Yeah. I need a couple more hours. I'll be done by the end of the month.
Probably need like 1 more hour because I remember you were like, you didn't have many more to go at all.
No.
But now working those long shifts, man. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start asking you some questions. Is that okay?
Yes, go for it. Let's do it.
So go ahead and tell the future or the present watchers, viewers, and then the future peeps who come across this video, just tell everyone more about yourself and who you are and what you love doing and all of that.
I'm always anticipating that question just because I'm like,
Oh, it's a horrible
let's see.
question.
Like I
I don't know
feel like
why
I need to be interesting for some reason, But you know most of my story, or maybe all of it. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, and I went to school there until I was 18, and then moved to San Antonio for college. It was definitely a big transition,
Yeah.
leaving home, and going to grad school was another adjustment. And I think getting beans was a really good thing for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, I'm getting married in September. That's another big transition.
My gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a
Mhm.
lot of big transitions for you.
Big transitions. And it's been 8 years since I left home. Like whenever I think about it, I'm just like, wow, it's been that long. But in the present time, it's like,
It
yeah,
feels like this much time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, 8 years. That's a long time.
it has
That's a
been.
really long time. How long did it take to kind of adjust from like living at home to being somewhere else? I mean, like hours and hours away.
Hmm.
Um,
I think, I think like my whole identity changed at that point, leaving home. Like everything that I knew, all of a sudden, like changed.
yeah.
It was now like having to adapt to like my environment, new people in my life. Because back in the day, the younger Alecxia, she was timid and shy, and that transition, even my personality now it's like, oh, like looking back, exactly,
Like,
looking back at now,
hey,
yeah,
you're more
yeah,
free. You're more free.
yeah,
You feel like you can put yourself out there and be yourself. Like
hmm,
there's
freedom.
freedom.
There we go. Like just freedom to be yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's so cool. So, okay, the next question on here kind of goes into your journey. Just so you kind of left home, and that would have been when you were like 18.
Hmm.
So, talk a little bit about the journey of becoming a therapist. I mean, is that something that you always wanted to do, or did you find it along the way?
So from my personal experience, like I, as a child, was in therapy, and you know, I didn't know at that time what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a teacher until I got older, and I was like, kids, I wouldn't want to work in that area, right? I enjoy kids, but not to that extent, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but props to all the teachers out there. I mean,
Right.
they can do it. They definitely can do it. But but yeah, I'm like losing track of what I was gonna say.
You wanted to be a
Uh,
teacher,
yes,
and
I
then the
wanted.
older you got, you were like, I don't
Mhm.
want to go teach in that classroom, teach, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So undergrad, I graduated with my psychology degree, uh, and at that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to focus on. I didn't feel like I had the guidance. I knew that I wanted to continue psychology, right? And I thought I was going to apply for a clinical psychology program, but I actually enrolled into a clinical mental health program, and
on
which I had
purpose?
no, I was confused. I was confused.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that
I've
part.
never really shared with people just because like there was some shame behind that,
Yeah.
just because of not knowing the difference between those two programs. Um, you know, yeah,
It's
just
confusing. It's really confusing. I
yeah.
actually I had a client's mom reach out to me this past week, and she was like, hey, I kind of want to get my kiddo, get some assessing done. And she like reached out to the school and like some other people. And then they gave her like a list of like names, and it's like psychologists, neurologists, and da 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 da. And it's like all these you don't know until you know.
Mhm.
And that's the easiest way I can put it,
Yeah.
but it's so confusing. All the roles have overlap too.
No, they are, and especially when you're like semi first generation, and then you don't have uh, that experience, or you don't have that mentor to be like, hey, like Alecxia, like this program means this, and these are the requirements, and this is what it looks like. I really wish I had that. Um, but honestly, I think I fell into the right track. I think I was placed there for a purpose, and I'm pretty happy that I went through it. I loved it.
I'm happy that you went through it because I
Yeah.
wouldn't have met you if you didn't.
No, you wouldn't have.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you found it like in its own way. Like you
Yeah.
never really. Some people I've noticed in these lives, the stories are so vastly different. Like one of my friends was like, I knew since he was like a teenager that he wanted to be a therapist, and then some
Yeah.
people are just figured it out like a year ago, and
Yeah.
then there's everything in between too.
Yeah.
We have such an interesting journey.
It is
So
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as you kind of got into this program, the clinical mental health, which I have a question, I'm going to kind of step over here and say something else. I will say figuring out which program to go into is so confusing because different institutions call it different things. And so I kind of had a lot of confusion too whenever I was trying to figure out where do I
Like
need
what
to
was
go?
what?
Like,
Yeah.
what are all of these things? Because it all looks the same to me, like at the time. So when you kind of started on this path and started taking classes and all of that, what made you decide to become a therapist?
Um, the the belief that people can change. Yeah, I think that's what made it, push me forward and actually go through it. Because I think you and I, there was a professor who told us, change is like this small, and when I heard that, it was like, I honestly did sit back, reflected on it, and I'm like, why am I here? Like,
Yeah,
am I gonna think that way all the time about people? Like, thinking that like this amount of change can really happen. But I think mental health has become so important in people's lives now, and it's everywhere. I think people are going that way,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that
It's
awareness.
yeah. Have you noticed? Well, let me ask you this. Since we were in school, so we were in school 2017 is when we started, and then you graduated in 2018, and then I was out in 2019. So, right? Yeah, 2017. Do you think that the awareness around therapy has changed, like even since we went into school?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more outlets to look for things in regards to mental health.
Yeah.
Like you're not alone. I personally don't feel alone.
Yeah.
When I hear others struggle or have similar experiences that I have in the past,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's wonderful about it. But I also think like, like glorifying mental health can also, cause some damage. Um, so I think there's a pros and cons to it for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you. may I ask you, what is an example of like over glorifying
Hmm.
mental health?
Yeah. Um, so over glorifying it would be, you know, okay. So like sharing your story, right? But you know, sharing it constantly to where it's not really about you anymore, or you're healing. So you lose, sight of the purpose of sharing that story.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I'm
Yes.
processing it in my head. I'm like, okay, does that make sense?
It did. Yes.
Okay.
You're actually the first one who's said it like that. And I think
Okay.
that's important. It's important to like it's cool that the awareness is coming and like people are finding it more accessible and all of that.
Hmm.
And it's equally important to be connected to the reason and the purpose of the why, the
Yes.
why behind all of it, and
Hmm.
staying in connection with that.
Yeah.
Um, and that can get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
busy.
And like the attention, right? Because I know the intent, the purpose, it's like there's a whole different community and you can get the support. But when it doesn't revolve around like your growth and connecting and finding that true healing, I just think it doesn't serve you, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Hmm.
That's a really good point. I'm so glad you said that because as a therapist, I do see so many people talking about it. Like I went to an event today with my mom, and it's like as soon as you say like I do mental health therapy, it's like you can't say anything else, and then people are like, oh, like they swarm to you, like.
Yeah.
But and that's awesome. Like I would prefer that over oh, like oh my god, like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
what you do what like voodoo person.
Yeah.
But I think it's I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but just the purpose of the why is really important too. Um, well, and so we see a lot of hard things, and I'm wondering for you, and especially in the trauma work that you do, what is the hardest part about your job, and like the hardest part about
Hmm.
being a therapist?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
just being new to the field, you know, and still like learning who I am as a therapist. I think that's been the hardest part of controlling, like seeking my own healing and controlling that part of me that wants to work harder than my client or wants to fix my client, right? Because it's not about me. And I think that's been the hardest part, you
yeah.
know, putting that part away and understanding that.
It's so hard. That's really, really hard too, especially it's like we believe so much that they can change and we can see it. It's like we see it, it's right there. It's right there. And then
Yeah.
they're just sometimes they're not ready or we're 3 steps ahead of
Yeah.
them and
Or
we have to yeah.
yeah. And sometimes we're not a fit, right? We're not a good fit. But yeah, I definitely think that has been the hardest part. Um,
Not working harder than your
my
clients.
client, yeah.
How do you balance that with working with teens and not working harder than the teen and then balancing this pressure that we can get from parents sometimes of like do more like do more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do more and go faster and fix,
So,
fix, fix.
yeah, so like finding that balance between what I can actually do. Um, hmm. I think coming from the perspective, like, and I think when it comes to the parents and we're working with teens, it's like, it's almost like we're held to a pedestal. Like we know everything, but we will only know what, our client will tell us, and that's what we work with. Um, I find a balance, by, I mean, setting those boundaries first off with, um, in general, um, and just, I, I guess being like myself and being like, hey, naturally myself. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't feel like I can give like a great answer just because like I don't think I've fully um experienced that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, that's what I will probably do.
Yeah. Getting really clear, like up front, and being
Hmm.
yourself,
Yeah.
finding your own way to do that, and what feels like doing that in a way that feels right for you.
Yeah.
Um, so, what about the best part of being a therapist and the best part of all the hard stuff that we do?
Um, the best part of it is seeing growth, like when a client tells you like, I reached this goal, like, I'm doing great, you see an improvement. Progress, I always tell clients, I'm like, progress can be like this little, right? And then progress is not linear. So I think that's the most wonderful part, like them acknowledging their own progress and their own healing.
To like see that and understand it and believe that, something to be proud of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. So, being a therapist and doing, and I am referencing to a lot of the work that you do is it's very trauma based,
Hmm.
uh, which I mean I admire you. I don't think I've ever actually shared this with you before, but I admire you for the work that you do because,
Hmm. You're gonna make me cry.
oh man, I just,
Uh-huh.
I couldn't do it.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And I think it takes a very special person to
Hmm.
do trauma work.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. It's, as much as, um, I think in the beginning, the trauma work was very difficult because you can lose yourself as a therapist, and there's such a thing as self-care that comes into play. And leaving everything in session and not carrying it with you. Um,
Can you
that
do
w-
that?
that was the hardest. That was the hardest thing for me. The hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely experiencing when I first started secondary trauma.
Out of grad school? Or like or,
Like once I started like working with just trauma.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't think enough therapists actually talk about secondary trauma, um, because I think there's how do I say this? there's almost a expectation that maybe we put on ourselves as therapists, or I might just be speaking for myself here, but it might resonate with other people. It's, I am a therapist, and I should, and I'm catching myself now and say I said should, but I should be able to handle most things.
Yes. And you know what? That goes back to like that part of us who probably wants to fix our client, or like, you know, or our perfectionist part of like, oh, I, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
that I can relate, like that I can relate to. Like, I'm a therapist and I should know this.
Yeah. 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 Like, it's one of the worst feelings having to tell. I experience it with parent work, but
Mm-hmm.
it's hard when I have to be like, I don't know. I, for some reason, that just feels disappointing. Like, I just point myself
Yeah,
in that. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm also like not the internet. Like, I don't, I can't just like tap
Yeah.
tap tap, like Google everything right now. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we do know a lot, and we can do a lot of amazing things, and we are human, and we're not robots, and
Yeah.
all the things. I have a question for you about, so in your area of expertise on the post, it says Alexia's work consists of helping manage stress and immigration, transition, and contain symptoms of trauma. Can you expand as much or as little on that and
Yeah.
what that means? And
Yeah. So majority of the work that I've done is with immigrants, Latino immigrants. Um, so a lot of it is confidential, right? But there are some things that I can share, like trauma informed. You know, those are the practices that we use because um, it's hard to process the trauma, right? That's why I say contain those symptoms while, you know, they're here in the United States, and, you know, they go off to where they need to be, right? Wherever they go. And yeah, I wish I could elaborate a little bit more. I really do.
yeah, um, I guess maybe I'm curious, can you explain what does it mean to contain symptoms of trauma?
Okay. Yeah. So containment is just, you know, just the word itself, like using a container for individuals, like basic skills, right? Coping tools. What are you doing to help yourself feel better? What are things that we can utilize when you are in crises? All right. So it's in the moment, like grounding techniques as well. The process work isn't isn't there just because it there's limited amount of time that we can actually work with the
Yeah,
client.
the processing really, it could almost, that's almost like an inappropriate time to process, because
Yes.
it's, you don't want to process in the middle of the crisis happening, or just not the right time to process.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
it does more harm to the client, right? If we were to start processing that trauma and then 2 weeks from now, like they're gone.
And then they have to take that with them like super unresolved, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's very like short term. So it's the containment is like, okay, this is like one stop on your way, and we're not going to open that box. We're not going to open that lid's going to stay on, but how are we going to get through this time? How are you taking care of yourself? So I think that's what I'm understanding about the keeping it like in a
Yeah,
manageable without getting out of control or
yeah.
feeling
That window of tolerance.
keeping someone in the window of tolerance as much
Hmm.
as we can.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So in a way, now that I'm actually processing it with you, it's crisis work, right? It's crisis work.
Yeah. Yeah. How does doing crisis work, and that's what you're doing like from 8 to 8, like
Hmm.
pretty high intensity work, right?
Hmm.
Or just
Yeah,
go 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 all day
it's
long.
go 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 all day long. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and sleep is my best friend.
Well, I was gonna ask. So these two questions go hand in hand. How does being a therapist influence your personal life, and
Hmm.
then how how do you manage your own stress from the work, from the job?
Okay. Um, you mentioned earlier like how do I not bring like whatever I hear? Um, how do I not bring it home? And you know, I I journal. I started journaling because I that was the best way for me to release all the commotion that was on in my head. Um, and how it affects me is that um, if I'm walking around and I see somebody who I think maybe needs help, it's like, is it really my business to go and help everyone I see? Or like, but it doesn't like, there's, in a way, it can affect me maybe negatively because then, going back to our conversation of like having to know everything, you know, feeling that disappointment if I didn't have a good session with a client, right? Like I could have said this, I could have approached it this way, and then learning how to calm down from that cloud and be human.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to turn the the therapist in us off. Like you were saying, it's like we kind of it's like we become a therapist and we go through grad school and or we go through grad school and then become a therapist. And then it's like we go out into the world and it's like a metamorphosis
Mm-hmm.
process too of like starting grad school and then leaving, and the butterfly can't go back into the cocoon.
Yeah. No,
And
yeah.
like it can't go in a reverse process, and or maybe it can by some biologically strange way and I just don't know, but um it's we once we just kind of evolve and become the therapist, and the therapist is almost like it's still us, right? Like it's I don't want to say like a heightened version of ourselves,
Yeah.
but a lot of the work that we do, really we have to lean on who we are as a person.
Yeah. You know, you know, something that you just said kind of like resonated with me. Um, it's part of us. I like to think of it as a part, right? That therapist part. Um, and like making it sit down on a chair and kind of just leave it there. And so I put that hat back on the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To create that separation because yeah.
It gets stressful if
Yeah.
we have some kind of separation, then the work lives in us.
Hmm.
Like it embodies us if we can't separate that. And I'm also curious too, you started working, well, you graduated before me, so you had like a year's worth of experience, actually more. But what has it been like for you to be a therapist during the pandemic? I think it's been
It's
it's roller coaster,
yeah.
right? Like
It's it's been weird.
weird.
Weird. I really thought I'd enjoy for the most part working from home. But I really did miss the office. Um, it definitely um, gave me more anxiety.
Working from home.
Yeah, working from home. Yeah, it's definitely been difficult working through the pandemic.
I feel like when we first went into the pandemic, I mean, everyone just kind of started losing clients. And I think that was probably not reflected in just our field, but just sure. I'll kind of recap the 45 minutes that we may or may not have just lost. But so for those of you who are just joining, or if this is the only part of the live that gets posted, we were on for 45 minutes having a wonderful conversation. And
We
it's
think so.
we might be biased, but
Yeah.
and so that 45-minute conversation didn't get saved, and I kind of got booted off, and so did Alecxia, and so I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. I'm so upset. I feel like my heart just like shattered. So
That's kind of weird because like it just started like I don't know if you saw that little circle.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we just both got booted off. Okay, so in short, the journey of you becoming a therapist started after you left home when you were 18, and you kind of found your way to the program without necessarily,
Actually knowing what it was about.
yeah, like you just found yourself in it, and then it ended up being something that you were really good at, and
Yeah.
almost like it happened for a reason. And you also said, so you didn't always know that you wanted to be a therapist. However, you had been in therapy as a child, and so you had that experience. And you decided to become a therapist because you believed and still believe that people can change. And oh, I didn't ask you this earlier. If you were not a therapist, what do you think you would be?
Oh, that's so hard. Um, probably like an engineer.
Really?
Hmm.
Tell me more.
I enjoyed math. I mean, I hate it now. I can't count money. But, you know, I really enjoyed math growing up. And maybe it was because of the teachers that I had. They made it so fun. Um, but looking back at it now, I think like being an engineer is like I'm gonna say it real chingona, like a real badass.
Like
So I think
a
I would have,
boss lady engineer. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I could see that. I could see that. Oh, that's hard for me to see you in that position though, because I know how good you are.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking like, well, you're not allowed to like not be a therapist or like
Yeah. But it's hard not to see myself like out of the therapist role anymore, you know?
yeah. Yeah,
But
I get you. And then so you were sharing that the hardest part of being a therapist is we have to work really hard to not work harder than our clients, because we can have a tendency out of a place, it's from a place of like caring and all of that, but we don't want to do the work for them
yeah.
because then they don't,
Yeah.
we cannot do that work that they
Yeah.
are needing to do.
Yeah.
No one can do that except them.
And it can be received wrong by the client. Do you know what I mean? Like if we are putting like if we become real passionate during the session, we may be seen like angry or like and I think it's just like my own reflection, but getting lost in that role, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the best part of being a therapist is witnessing the growth that clients make and the change and being a part of that journey,
Mm-hmm.
being able to see that, and then to have the clients see it and believe it for themselves.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
having them acknowledge that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you shared, how does being a therapist influence your personal life? Along with how do you manage your own stress? And managing your own stress, you've taken up journaling recently, and that's been really helpful. And therapist influencing your personal life, we were talking about how it's hard to turn off that therapist part. Like that therapist is a part of us. We have many parts, but that's a very loud part. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very vocal part.
Yeah.
And then I was explaining, I think it was in this section about how we kind of go through a metamorphosis process.
This ever happen to you? Like now that I'm looking back at it, like one of the hardest things about being a therapist, like seeing others' behaviors and be like, oh, that's definitely a trauma response, or like whatever they say, it's like that's a trauma response.
Mm-hmm. Like you can't.
Yeah.
Once you are trained to see things, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't forget the knowledge that you have learned.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, once we become a therapist, that's what we sign up for. But sometimes we don't realize we're signing. We don't realize what we're getting ourselves into until we're like, well, into it already.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't even think I realized what I got myself into until like my final year of grad school.
Yeah. Yeah. When we
Mm-hmm.
started practicum and internship.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about it this before, is that like our own freaking issues started surfacing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, we gotta go get help.
Yeah. And we're awesome for doing that too, because we noticed it and then we did something about it. And we realized that we needed support too, because the therapist and, the therapists are not immune from doing the work themselves.
No, not at all.
Nope. And we are wholeheartedly practicing what we preach to the best of our ability. Like if we're talk the talk and walk the walk, and we're doing it
most of the time.
We're
Trying.
Yeah.
I like that word, trying.
We're trying. We're doing our best.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our best. And that whole process too of, I think becoming a therapist is kind of like the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, and then it kind of goes into a cocoon state, right? And then it gets ready. And I think grad school very much so felt like that. We were in this little bubble and growing and hurting sometimes because of our own stuff coming up. And then once we departed and were ready, we turned into like, the butterfly, and then
Yeah.
we go. And what I was saying earlier is that there's not a reverse process for that. Like the butterfly cannot go back into the cocoon, and it's once it has evolved, it's evolved. And becoming a therapist is a lot like that, of just
Yeah. I think we're definitely constantly like evolving.
yeah.
All right. We're definitely that butterfly with extra wings
Yeah.
as we go.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so there's three more questions that we can get to pretty quickly, I think.
Okay.
So, what are some common stigmas or misconceptions about therapy that you encounter as a therapist?
hmm that you're just there to talk. They're just there to vent. Um, I think those are those misconceptions, um, or that's only for when you're actually really needed.
Like a last resort.
A last resort. It's not like a priority. I read a um, this fitness post, right? You can like spend this much money on junk food, and I'm like, you can spend this much money on fitness and not pay for mental health
Uh-huh.
therapy, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, let's challenge that.
Like, yeah, like people don't mind.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, it is. So one of the bigger misconceptions you've run into is that it's just like a venting session. And
Yeah. Or
do you,
like why, and I I'm only getting that from like from what I hear from people, you
yeah,
know.
like in your experience.
hmm
Yeah.
Like why should I go? Like all I'm gonna do is talk about my problems. How is that gonna help? Especially like I've noticed it in the Hispanic Latino community, and using it as a like a last resort.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that people, if they believe that they come in and it's just for venting or they're using it as such, do you think that, well, I'm wondering if they take things to the next level, or if the therapist presents them with an opportunity of like, is that
Mhm.
something you want to work on, or is that something that we need to process more?
Yeah,
If someone thinks like, oh crap, like
yeah,
this isn't venting anymore, this is like doing something.
yeah. And the venting part, I think a lot of times clients, like the majority, don't know what real therapy is about. And I think that's where we come in of like kind of giving them that guidance, like, hey, these are things that we can address. We can learn how to cope with that. And here are some tools like, and some people actually benefit from venting, right? Because they process things that way. But in general, I think most people don't know what therapy is about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And second to last question is, how do you know if your therapist is a good fit for you? Or how would you define the right fit?
hmm I'm gonna go off my finding my therapist. um, I think they're like liking their personality.
That's big.
That's I think that's like a one important quality that I look for in that I was looking for in my therapist. And feeling like that connection in session, feeling like I can relate to them, I can trust them. Those are a couple of things that I think would make a good fit.
Yeah, those are very important things. And that also what came up in my mind as you were talking is those are really important things to look for. And if someone is getting into therapy for the first time, or they don't have any, like, let's just say no one around them has gone to therapy, and they're like just straight up doing it for the first time, a lot of people don't know that those things are important to look for.
Yeah.
When you're interviewing therapists. And a lot of people, I don't think, interview or,
Yeah.
you
Or
know,
consult, before they actually make the appointment.
yeah,
I think that would save time, for the client.
yeah,
Because I know that at times, I've seen that, oh, well, this therapist didn't work out, another didn't. But it can be difficult too,
yeah. Oh,
finding
definitely.
that good fit, because there's so many of us too.
Yeah, yeah. And
Hmm.
a different therapist might suit someone better at a different time in their life
Yeah.
as they evolve and as their needs change.
Yeah, exactly. Like the same therapist you probably had 7 years ago was not as effective because you probably weren't ready for that change.
Right,
So.
right.
Hmm.
And then the last question I have for you is, if someone watching this video, either right now or someone who comes across it in the future, if someone watching this video is on the fence about starting therapy, what would you say to them?
Hmm. We feel it, we heal it.
I like that.
Yeah, I just created that motto not long long ago.
Dude, you need to create something and put it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
That was good.
I'm glad you liked it.
Girl, I liked it a lot, girl. Yeah, girl. Dude, I just miss you to pieces.
I
I haven't
know.
seen you in so
Yeah.
long.
Well,
Ugh.
once I move to Austin.
Girl, well, you're gonna be gone for a while, but
Yeah. I'll be there soon.
eventually, yeah, at some point,
Yeah.
or I'll just come get you and like make you move over here. I'll like
You're
take
like,
beans and be
Alecxia, it's
like,
ready.
you don't. I'll like not like hold him hostage or anything, but like you don't get beans back until you like move over here, and then I'll like cuddle with him and all that. You know?
Oh, I miss him so much. Yeah.
So he's not with you, huh?
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Well, since this is going to be the short live, let me reintroduce you so the people watching this can know who you are. So, and then we'll wrap it up and call it a day. So you can go night night because you look very tired.
Thank you. I am, to be
Do
honest
you
with
work
you.
tomorrow? Do you get weekends off?
No, I have off tomorrow.
Okay, good, good.
Mhm.
So, internet people, this is my lovely friend Alecxia. Alecxia is an LPC associate. She is just a lovely human being. And Alecxia and I went to grad school together in 2017. And so we went through a couple years of just having classes together every semester. And
Heartbreak. And
heartbreak, yeah, there was those, yeah. And we became really close throughout the grad school experience.
mhm.
And so Alecxia graduated from the University of Incarnate Word in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in psychology. And to further her education, she attended St. Mary's University and graduated with her master's in clinical mental health counseling in 2018. Alecxia enjoys working with Latino immigrants, providing trauma-informed services to help promote biculturalism and deconstruct the ideology of assimilation. Alexia's work consists of helping manage stress in immigration, transition, and contain symptoms of trauma. And a fun fact about Alecxia is that Alecxia has a fur baby named Mr. Beans.
Yeah. I couldn't help but smile. I couldn't help but smile with the introduction.
And then on that third slide, did you see all those pictures of us?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
girl.
did.
I thought I was gonna have to pull a bunch of pictures just from my wedding because I was like, I don't think Alecxia and I have a lot of pictures, but I started going through, and we have pictures.
Yeah.
We have pictures. So if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, in Alexia's little post on my profile, I put a third slide, a very special third slide. You're the only one who has gotten a third slide full of pictures, by the way. So yes. So, but if you haven't seen it, you should go look at it, and it kind of shows Alecxia and I's journey in grad school, and then when I got married.
That's definitely like a little storyline right there of us.
Yeah, of the little collage.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah. And then we've been trying to like create content on and off.
Yeah. That's hard. It's I think the pandemic made everything, amplified everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we can film some videos or something when you move to Austin. We can like meet up for dinner in the evenings, once a month or so, and just catch up.
Yeah. Real talk with therapists.
Real talk, girl. Yeah.
Real talk. We feel it.
Yeah.
We feel it to heal it, girl.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, this wraps up episode 9 of Talks with Tay. And
Damn, boo, you're doing great things out here.
girl, thank you.
Look at you.
Thanks. Episode 9. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect.
Did you see what Francisco said?
Get out of the comments. You get out of the comments, Francisco. While G and I watch the Eagles. And like when we meet up, like we'll go dump them off to go watch the Eagles, and then you and I will go like record and be like, shoo, go watch football.
Yeah. Go watch your football.
Yeah, and then we like go with our animals.
That would definitely make me happy.
Girl, yes. But I miss you dearly.
I miss you too, girlfriend.
You'll have to let me know when you're coming home. I like to see you every time I can. So, but
yeah.
Well, thank you, viewers, for watching episode 9, and I will catch you guys next week with another guest here